Welcome, everyone, to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. This is episode 6. We're going to be talking about my ACC predictions for 2022. Will I have the Pittsburgh Panthers repeating as ACC champions? Well, you gotta find out here later in the episode. And then at the second half of this episode, we're going to be talking about the ACC's future. What is the conference's future? They have a grant of rights that go all the way to 2036. The top schools in that conference are in a tough spot. The top brand value schools, if they could go and leave the conference and join the Big Ten, the SEC, they would do it today. But because of that grant of rights, they can't. We'll discuss it. But is there a possibility of this fantasy long shot that the conference could dissolve in dissolution? We'll talk about that possibility, a long shot possibility, no doubt. And maybe there is no chance of it happening. But we're going to talk about it here on this show and peek around the corner. But first, our ACC predictions of what's going to happen in the 2022 ACC season. We're going to do the Coastal Division. We're going to do Atlantic Division. Again, if you've watched my late episodes, we're going to go from 7th place to 1st place with our predictions. Just going to be a quick synapse of every team in the ACC. We're starting with the Coastal Division, and I think this is the poorest division in all of Power 5 college football for this year in particular. A lot of these teams I have placed higher than I wanted to. First of all, we'll just go over quickly. 7th place Duke and 6th place Georgia Tech. Duke's got a new head football coach, Mike Elko, defensive coordinator from Texas A&M. Got a great reputation as a defensive coordinator. Now it's his first year as head coach. He's bringing with him Rob Smith, defensive coordinator. He's been at Rutgers a couple times. He's been at the University of Minnesota under P.J. Fleck. I am not a big Rob Smith fan. Since he left the Minnesota Gophers, Minnesota last year was a top 5 defense in all of FBS football. With the Gophers, Rob Smith, the Gophers couldn't even line up correctly. We were absolutely confused. Not a big fan of Rob Smith, but Mike Elko is a great defensive mind. He's bringing him along, so he thinks it's a fit, so we'll give it a chance. Obviously, consensus says that Duke is going to finish in 7th place. I've got them in 7th place. They got a great receiver, Jalen Calhoun. This is going into his 4th year. I'm rooting for the guy. I want him to have one more good season, and then he can get drafted in NFL drafts. He is a great possession receiver. I love watching that kid play. When the Duke's game's on, my eyes on Jalen Calhoun. So I got for 6th place, Georgia Tech, Jeff Collins, the head coach. Don't think he survives the year. That roster, he had a tough job when he became the head coach of Georgia Tech because he had to turn over the whole roster from going from that running attack previous that Georgia Tech had to a more modern pro-style offense that he's trying to run. So there was going to be a huge roster turnover. But what is this year 3 of Jeff Collins? The roster turnover is almost speeding up. I mean, he's got 17 transfers coming in. Woo! I don't think Jeff Collins survives the year. I got Georgia Tech finishing 6th. I think consensus, everyone's got Georgia Tech finishing 6th in the Coastal. Virginia, another new first-year head coach, Tony Elliott. I've got them finishing 5th in the Coastal Division. Tony Elliott was a very highly successful offensive coordinator for Clemson. He finally gets a head coaching job, and he deserves it. He's had years and years of success. He's had a lot of interviews, never got the job. He finally got the job, a head coaching job at a Power 5 program. I do think Virginia is going to take a huge step back. You know, it's quite odd that Tony Elliott gets the head coaching job at Virginia the year after Clemson has their worst offensive performance under his tutelage, under his leadership. But having said that, I don't think it was his fault. I think it was partially maybe it was his fault, but the Clemson quarterback room last year wasn't very good. So now he's got Brennan Armstrong, a tough kid, a great college quarterback. I think he's got a chance to be drafted in the NFL. There's no doubt he's got a chance to be drafted in the NFL. The left-hander is a tough kid. He was once committed to the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and then he decommitted, went to Virginia. Another horrible heartbreak for us Gopher fans. The kid can play. The problem is this year, Virginia basically lost their entire offensive line. Mishback, the tight end, is a great target. But I think the program is starting all over again. It's going to take a couple years. I hope the Cavalier fan base gives Tony Elliott a time. I hope they're patient with the guy. Great coach, great success at Clemson. Give him time, Virginia. But this year, you're all going to take a huge step back. The number 4 team I got in the Coastal Division is Virginia Tech, and I just didn't want them to place them number 4, but there was no other place to put them. I am not high on Virginia Tech this year as well. Brent Pry, the defensive coordinator at Penn State, becomes the head coach of Virginia Tech. The offensive struggles last year, the quarterback performance was absolutely brutal. They're bringing in the transfer Grant Wells from Marshall. He throws a ton of interceptions. I just didn't have anywhere else to put Virginia Tech. Again, they got to give Coach Pry a chance to develop what he wants to do. What he actually wants to do is while everyone's zigging, he wants to go zagging. He wants his team to be a physical, run-oriented team there in the ACC. We'll see what he can do. Again, got to give him a couple years. This division just for 2022, a lot of these schools are probably going to not go bowling. It's going to be a rough division to watch. A lot of just development, first-year head coaches. So the third team I've got is North Carolina. Again, just disappointment. Mac Brown, Hall of Fame coach. No question about it. And they've had some high recruiting classes since he's become head coach of the Tar Heels. But man, they just don't develop anybody. That offensive line couldn't pass block. Sam Howell, a third-year starter last year, who was supposed to be a first, second round, third round NFL draft pick, and he wasn't. He didn't have a chance last year. North Carolina, they just are not developing their players. I don't know. I don't have a clue who their quarterback's going to be. Possibly Drake May, but I have no clue. Defense was horrible last year, even though if you look at their defensive recruiting out of high school, the ratings, Mac Brown's getting the job done there, but there's just no development. And I would not have North Carolina pick third this year, but who else am I going to have as third place in the Coastal? Honestly, I'm asking you. Who would you have third in the Coastal? Got to put North Carolina there. So this second place finishing 2022 season, I got the defending ACC champions, the Pittsburgh Panthers. Led by Narduzzi, they lost so many players last year. They lost their 6-year player, senior Pickett, quarterback who went to the NFL, drafted in the first round. They lost Addison, their great wide receiver who went in the transfer portal. That was a big, huge loss. I know Narduzzi, the head coach, was very upset. This NIL, this whole new segment of our college football world is really topsy-turvy, and it really hurt Pittsburgh this year as they lost their top wide receiver, probably top 3 wide receiver in all of college football. They got a new quarterback. Of course, they lost Pickett, Ken Slovis. I like the kid. I think he's got a chance. He was pretty accurate in the time that he played with USC. He's got an accurate ball. And they're bringing in Mumfield. Mumfield, the wide receiver from Akron. A lot of schools went after him. When he got in the transfer portal, the offers came flying in. Watch his tape from Akron. He's going to be able to replace Addison somewhat. But I got Pittsburgh coming in second. They got a tough schedule. So I've got Miami of Florida Hurricanes finishing first place in the Coastal, going to the ACC Championship, which goes against my rule of having a first-year head coach win the division or conference. Mario Cristobal, coming from Oregon, is the new head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, and I've got them winning the division. Van Dyke, the quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, is a superstar. Watch him play. What an arm. Fantastic. The coaching staff, I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about this mix, though. Mario Cristobal, the head coach of Miami, with Josh Gaddis, the offensive coordinator of Michigan. Now, I don't know. There's something about it that I'm just a little skeptical. Skeptical about. I'm a little worried about this. First of all, Mario Cristobal, when he was Oregon head coach, he was a bit more conservative than what people think he was. His offense. In fact, they didn't throw the ball as much as everyone thinks they did at Oregon when Cristobal was the head coach. Josh Gaddis was a little bit of a, I don't know. I think there was some friction there at Michigan. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I know their defensive coordinator is Kevin Steele. He was supposed to be not supposed to be. He was going to be the new head football coach of Auburn if that coup attempt to get Brian Hartman out of there, if that would have succeeded, Kevin Steele would have been the new head football coach. I don't know. So is Kevin Steele going to leave after this year? Is he going to get another potential head coaching job? He probably will. The mixture of that, the personalities in that coaching staff, I'm a little bit worried about. But for now, or going forward, I think Miami of Florida takes the division. I think Pittsburgh is their highest competition in the division. The division is very poor this year. So Miami of Florida, I got them going to the ACC championship game. So we'll go to the Atlantic Division, and I believe this is a much more interesting division in the 2022 season. Let's start with the 7th place, Syracuse Orangemen. And I just got to say one name, Sean Tucker, the running back. Almost 1,500 yards last year, 6.1 rushing average. If you turn on a Syracuse game, Orangemen game, watch Sean Tucker, the great running back, fantastic to watch. Love that dude. And he, in Syracuse is probably going to win a game somewhere down the season that they shouldn't win because the guy can absolutely play and carry a team for one game at least. Dino Barber's the head coach. Maybe his last season with Syracuse. Can they win 4 games this year? I think it's a tough call, but you got Sean Tucker. Syracuse comes in 6th place. New offensive coordinator, Robert Anae from Virginia. That's a very interesting new hire. Syracuse comes in 6th place in the Atlantic Division. 7th place in the Atlantic Division. Wake Forest, the guy coming in 6th. If I would have done this prediction last week, I probably would have had them coming in 3rd, but they lost Sam Hartman, their great quarterback. Undisclosed medical issue. Fantastic quarterback. Would have been drafted last year in the NFL draft. We hope for the best. We pray for the best for the young man. Hope he can get back on the football field. But his health, long-term health, is most important. So I'm not going to spend any time on Wake Forest. If Sam Hartman comes back, we'll probably review the predictions for Wake Forest. But right now we got him in 6th place. 5th place, Boston College, and can't find a better a quarterback that I root for more. Djokovic he's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of skill. Didn't put up the numbers last year that I thought he was going to. He's got a injury issue, it seems like, all the time. But I love the guys. See, he's one of these guys who has the talent, the skill. I also think he has the intangibles, the leadership intangibles. Another guy is going to be drafted out of the ACC in the NFL draft next year. A great player, Jeff Hafley, the head coach, great defensive mind. That defense is getting a lot of hype. A lot of hype going into this year. They are littered with 5-year players, 4-year seniors, 5-year seniors. The defense is probably going to excel at a very high level. I got Boston College making a bowl game, and that wide receiver, Zay Flowers, who could have transferred to another school, he was getting offered. He was getting big offers with name, image, and likeness, big bucks, but he decided to stay at Boston College. So I got them in 5th. They could slide up in the first half of that division. Love the quarterback. The defense is legit. Number 4 is Florida State. I got them finishing 4th. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. What is their offensive line going to look like? For such a prominent, huge football program, for the high recruits that they get, they can never seem to establish an offensive line. The quarterbacks get shredded. Jordan Travis, doesn't ever seem to stay on the field. He had a decent year last year, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But they got to, if he can play every Saturday, I think they brought in 3 offensive lineman transfers. That should hopefully help. At least they understand they've got an issue at the offensive line position. Just don't quite understand. They got a tough schedule. Real tough schedule. I got them finishing 4th. Louisville, 3rd place. Malik Cunningham, complete stud. This ACC's got quarterbacks. I wish the Big Ten had ACC quarterbacks. And I think the ACC wished they had Big Ten's defense and offensive line. I mean, that's basically how it is. Malik Cunningham, fantastic player. Of course, there are questions on defense. But that offense is tremendous. I can't see them finishing the top 2, however, because the top 2, and this is going to surprise some people, but it's a Clemson versus North Carolina State, the Tigers and the Wolfpack, the battle for first place in this division, the Atlantic Coast and in the Atlantic Division, and I also think it's the battle for primacy of the ACC in 2022. Clemson versus North Carolina State. Clemson has been dominating the ACC for years. They did not win it last year, right? DJ Ugalaga, however you pronounce his name, and you all know I would not pronounce it correctly. DJ, terrible year last year. It was ugly to watch, and I don't think it's going to get any better. Shipley, the running back, another year older, fantastic running back for Clemson. Dabo's going to lean on him. They got great defensive line. They might have 6 guys drafted, or 3 or 4 guys drafted next year's draft out of the defensive line. They got 6 guys who anyone would take. They're filthy. They're deep. They're excellent. A lot of things going for Clemson. They got a home game at North Carolina State. But that did not stop me from taking North Carolina State as the winner of the Atlantic Coast at the Atlantic Division. And I got North Carolina State winning the ACC championship. They got the coach, Dave Doran, who's been there, successful. The culture is set. The expectations are set. I know that I'm not the only one who's got them winning this. There's not many, but I'm not the only one who's got North Carolina State winning this division. We are the minority, but we are a growing minority. North Carolina State is going to take this. Devin Leary, the quarterback, 35 TDs, 5 interceptions. Makes plays all over the field, but he makes plays in the red zone. When they get down, they score because he can make plays. He can avoid the rush. He can see he sees the open wide receiver. Again, they got the away game at Clemson, but that did not scare me off. Defense is good. The running back position, they lost their guys last year. Jordan Houston, is he going to be their lead back? I have no idea. He's the only experienced guy who seems to be coming back from North Carolina State. But I got North Carolina State winning this division and defeating the Miami, Florida Hurricanes in the ACC Championship. So far in my predictions, I've got Baylor winning the Big 12. I got Alabama winning the SEC. I've got North Carolina State winning the ACC. And soon I'll have my Big 10 predictions and my Pac-12 predictions. To end this episode, we're going to be talking about ACC's future. Before we do that, please, if you like this content, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate the support we at Peek Around the Corner has been given so far in our first week on the show. It's been absolutely amazing, blowing all perceived expectations. Thank you so much. Please share the video with your friends. Let's get on with the ACC's future. It's a tough future, right? Let me first explain for those who do not know the predicament the ACC is in. All the schools that we mentioned in this ACC prediction, a lot of them are in a tough spot. Here's the reason why. They're in a contract that goes out all the way to 2036. They're stuck in a grant of rights that is all the way to 2036. What is a grant of rights? The grant of rights is when a school gives up their media rights to the conference in order for the conference to have more of a leverage when they go in negotiations with their potential media partners. While the Big Ten is doing a new media contract, that hopefully the details and all of it will be finalized next week, and we'll go over it next week. Pac-12 is doing a new contract here soon. Big 12 next year. SEC did a new one 2 years ago, and it was gigantic. The ACC is stuck in their contract all the way into 2036 unless ESPN somehow ups their payouts, redoes their contract. And the grant of rights makes it so if a school in the ACC wants to leave the conference, they can, but who's going to take them? Because if a school leaves the ACC, they don't take their media rights with them. So the value of that school is basically non-existent to the conference that would take them. So they really can't leave. And there's really no way around the grant of rights. If you look at the grant of rights, the punishment, you would have to, the buyout numbers are in the hundreds and hundreds of $1 million. And the ACC potentially might not even accept those hundreds and hundreds of $1 million and say, you, Florida State, you have to stay in the conference. And for the ACC to expand, if a school, if they wanted to expand, if West Virginia, and we know West Virginia is called ACC to see what their interest is in the Mountaineers, for the Mountaineers to join the ACC. Let's say West Virginia and Cincinnati, I'm just giving an example, called the ACC and the ACC said, yes, we want West Virginia, we want Cincinnati to come in and join our conference. Because West Virginia would add so much, their intense fan base. Look, West Virginia at Virginia Tech game this year, sold out at Virginia Tech. West Virginia at Pittsburgh, sold out at Pittsburgh. Because West Virginia fans travel, they buy tickets, they go to games. It's just too bad that West Virginia is not in the ACC. They would increase the value of the ACC. Here's the problem, though. Let's say ACC said, yes, Cincinnati, West Virginia want you in. Would Cincinnati and West Virginia want to go to the ACC with that grant of rights all the way to 2036? The new Big 12 contract, the Big 12 contract will be for 2025, right? The conference that Cincinnati and West Virginia is in. They'll probably have a renewal of that contract somewhere between 2031 before ACC can even do a renewal of this old media contract that they have. I can't see the ACC expanding. So what about dissolution? Dissolution is when the whole conference basically just implodes. Is it possible? Is it possible for these ACC schools to get out of the conference because the conference dissolves? I think it's an extreme long shot, but let's talk about it. In the ACC bylaws, it does not say, at least what I can read from the ACC bylaws that's out in public, it does not have any instructions on how members of the institutions could vote to dissolve the conference. Therefore, in theory, in some people's theories, and it's been reported on in a few publications in ACC country, that the way to dissolve the ACC would go by North Carolina state law. In North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, their laws state that to dissolve a nonprofit organization such as the ACC, in theory, that it would go by majority vote. There's 14 full members of the ACC, and then there's Notre Dame, who has an affiliation with the ACC, and according to some reports, in ACC country, Notre Dame would get a full vote. So it would take 8 votes in the ACC, in this theory, to dissolve the ACC conference. So if you dissolve, so let's say there's 8 ACC schools who somehow, through back channel communications, them calling the SEC, them calling the Big Ten, even potentially a couple of them calling the Big 12, knowing that there's about 6 ACC schools that might have a landing spot in the SEC and the Big Ten. Let's say there's 8 schools that can find a landing spot outside the ACC. And they somehow, again, super long shot, because I'm not a conspiracy guy, because people can't keep a secret. 2 people can't keep a secret. How can 8 people keep a secret? But in theory, 8 schools would vote to dissolve the ACC. Therefore, the ACC grant of rights. Is it still a thing if there is no conference? Many very smart people say yes. By contractual law, still the GOR would be in place. Some people say no, because there is no ACC conference. How can there be a grant of rights? How can a conference own these schools' media rights when it doesn't even exist? Right? I'm not a lawyer. I was 12 credits away from pre-law. So I know nothing. Definitely not a contractual. I'm not a lawyer. But there is this theory. Now, I would have never brought this up on Twitter weeks ago. This possible dissolution in the ACC. However, there was an article written by Tim Sullivan in the Louisville, I think the Courier newspaper, in which he was talking with the athletic director of Louisville. And the Louisville athletic director brought up the fact that we hope, I'm paraphrasing here, we hope that the ESPN comes back to us and redo some of this ESPN contract, or basically we have the ability to dissolve the conference with 8 votes, which would dissolve the grant of rights. Now, if you read that article, it's kind of hard to see who is actually saying it, the athletic director of Louisville or the writer of the article. So I reached out to Tim Sullivan. I didn't get an answer back, but that really sparked my curiosity over this possible dissolution of the ACC, because that possible comment from the athletic director of Louisville came a few days after the chancellor of North Carolina saying, we hope ESPN comes to us and redoes this contract. We're optimistic, yada, yada, yada. So I think there's some ACC schools, or all the ACC schools, feel that they have a little bit of a leverage on ESPN, which they really shouldn't, because that contract is signed, sealed, and delivered. That grant of rights, ESPN has that ACC content of all the schools all the way until 2036, and it's a great deal for Disney and ESPN. So why would they renegotiate that TV deal? They wouldn't. They don't want to. ESPN is losing some money, right, in this in their division. So why would they redo this? However, it does seem like there's some schools in the ACC that feel that they have this little bit of a leverage, this threat of dissolution. Man, I wish we could get some answers on that. Right now, at Peek Around the Corner, we're giving it an extreme long shot for a couple of different reasons. Does the grant of rights really disappear if the conference disappears? Because there is they have an agreement with their distributor, broadcasting partner, which is ESPN. Does that just all disappear? And the fact that it would be hard to get 8 schools landing spots, give 8 schools an incentive to say, yes, we're going to dissolve the conference. I mean, we can run down the schools, right? What are the schools that the Big Ten and the SEC would be interested in? North Carolina, Virginia, that's 2. Florida State, Miami, Florida, that's 3 and 4. Clemson, that's 5. Right? Who else? North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, potential Louisville, potentially Virginia Tech. And then you got Notre Dame. You got Notre Dame, who would have a full vote, supposedly, in this theory. And then you got Georgia Tech, who's a big research university, Metro Atlanta. Big Ten would definitely be interested. So can you get 8 schools landing spots in the SEC and the Big Ten? It's highly questionable. But then you have the Big 12. Maybe your mark maybe a couple schools will see the writing on the wall. Maybe a Pittsburgh or a Louisville would rather go to the Big 12 instead of just getting left behind completely. The future of the ACC, the long-term future of the ACC is bleak. They got one thing going for them, that ESPN was the sugar daddy and invested and created the ACC network. But on the negative side of that, to get that ACC network established, all these university presidents at the time, the ACC extended that grant of rights all the way from 2027, which was the original date, all the way to 2036. A terrible decision. In this time of change, rapid change, in this time of live content becoming more and more valuable to media companies, you sign a contract all the way to 2036. That's the death knell. That's the death rattle of the ACC. And it's rattling. So, we'll see. We'll stay on this story. Again, if you like this content, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to our channel. We've seen extreme growth in the first 4 days. We thank you so very much. Until next time, please, from us at Peek Around the Corner to you, please, y'all take care of each other. Thanks.